Good morning. This is Muhammad Suleiman, Assistant Professor of Commerce, working at MVS Government Degree College, Autonomous, Mehboob Nagar. Today, let us learn about conditions and warranties. As everyone of us purchase a lot of things for our daily needs and for our durables, so we enter into transactions with different people, different traders, and in the process of formation of a contract, the seller or the party who is at the other side will make some promises or description or representations about the product. And in the meanwhile, he will assure us regarding the performance of the product, regarding the functioning of the product, and the remedies that are available to us. So, in this case, it is important for us to learn about conditions and warranties. What are those conditions and warranties? Let us look into detail one by one. So, in this session, we will be learning about the introduction part of the conditions and warranties, and what is meant by a condition, and what is meant by a warranty, and the difference between a condition and a warranty. Then we will learn about express conditions and warranties, implied conditions and warranties, and finally we will be learning about caveat emptor. As discussed earlier, while forming a contract, a party may make statements in order to induce the other person to enter into the contract, and he may make some statements also in this case. And sometimes the statements made before entering into the contract by a party are known as representations. Such a representation may be mere expression of an opinion about what he is selling, and sometimes it may be a description about the performance of the goods that we are going to buy. And when the representation or the description made by the made by the seller or the party does not form a part of the contract that he is making, then it has no legal consequences in the future. On the other hand, if the stipulations or representations or the explanations given by the party or given by the trader are into the integral part of the contract, or if it forms an integral part of the contract, and the other party or the buyer relies upon such statements, then it is called a stipulation, and the stipulation may be understood either in the form of a condition or a warranty. Because of the statement given by the other party, the buyer relies on the statement given by the other party. And if the buyer relies on the other party, it will be called as a stipulation, and it is an integral part of the contract and may be treated as either a condition or a warranty. Now let us see what is a condition. A condition is a stipulation essential to the main purpose of the contract. The breach of which gives rise to a right to treat the contract as repudiated. So, if the stipulation mentioned in the contract is not followed, there is a breach, and the stipulation mentioned in the contract is not followed, then it will give a right to treat the contract as repudiated. Now here we have to understand what is a stipulation. A stipulation in a contract of sale with reference to goods which are subject matter thereof may be a condition or a warranty. So the stipulation may result in either giving a condition or extending warranty. And it is important to note that all stipulations in a contract of sale are not of equal importance. Some stipulations are of equal importance and some stipulations are not of equal importance. And some of them are essential to the contract and some of them are collateral to the contract. The stipulations which are essential to the contract are called conditions, and the stipulations which are collateral to the contract are called warranty. A contract can exist without warranty, but a contract cannot exist without a condition. Therefore, the main purpose of making some stipulations is to extend a warranty or to provide a condition. And in order to influence the buyers to purchase the goods, the seller makes certain statements regarding the goods. Sometimes he may praise the goods, he may explain the way in which the goods work, and he may explain the process in which the service is given by the goods, and so on. In such a cases, he will try to influence the buyer to purchase the goods by making a good opinion or by giving an impression about the goods on the buyer. Then, in such a case, the buyer will be influenced by the statement given by the seller, and the statements given by the seller with respect of goods can be divided into two. Number one, statements in praise of the goods which do not form a part of contract. These statements have no legal consequences. When the statements or praises given by the seller do not form a part of the contract, then in such a case, the statements will not give rise to any legal obligation or consequences. On the other hand, some statements which are given by the seller form an integral part of the contract. Then, in such a case, upon following of such stipulations which are integral to the part of the contract, which will give rise to legal consequences. So, in such a case, a stipulation which is an integral part of the contract will give rise to legal consequences. Otherwise, it will not give rise to any legal consequences. Now, let us see the essentials of a condition. What are the essentials of a condition? There are three essentials of a condition. The first essential is it is essential to the main purpose of the contract. Without this condition, there is no contract. While explaining about the performance of the good or while making the contract itself, the party will explain the condition which is the main purpose of the contract. So, first and foremost essential condition of a contract is it is the main purpose of the contract. Then, second one, the non fulfillment of condition causes irreparable damage to the aggrieved party, which would defeat the very purpose for which the contract is made. if the condition explained in the main purpose of the contract is not fulfilled, then it will cause irreparable damage to the party, and the very purpose of making the contract itself is defeated. For example, a student purchases a pen which shall write in blue. So he asked for a blue pen, and the seller or the bookshop owner explained that the pen will write in blue ink. After buying that pen, when the student goes home and starts writing, he observes that it is a black pen. Here we can see that the essential purpose of the contract was to purchase a blue pen, and which was explained by the student to the bookshop owner, and the owner of the bookshop, either by mistake or overlook, has given a black pen to him. Then in such a case, the condition which was put by the student is not fulfilled, and it has caused some irreparable damage to him. Then in such a case, he can tell that the very purpose of the contract is defeated. Then in such a case, there is a breach of contract, which is third essential condition. The breach of condition gives a right to the aggrieved party to rescind the contract and recover the damages for breach of condition. In this case, the student can go back to the bookshop owner, bookstore's owner, and he can ask for return of the pen, that is black pen, because he did not ask for a black pen but he asked for a blue pen. Therefore, the essential of a condition are: number one, it is essential to the main purpose of the contract. Then second one, the non-fulfillment of conditions causes irreparable damage to the aggrieved party. The third one, the breach of condition gives a right to the aggrieved party to rescind the contract and recover the damages for breach of condition. Now, let us see warranties. What do we mean by warranties? A warranty is a stipulation collateral to the main purpose of the contract, the breach of which gives rise to a claim for damages, but not a right to reject the goods and treat the contract as repudiated. So this is totally different from conditions. In conditions, the condition which was explained is treated as the integral part of the contract, and it is essential to the main purpose of the contract. But here, in case of warranty, it is treated as a stipulation which is collateral to the main purpose of the contract, but not the main purpose of the contract. This word collateral has to be remembered. And the breach of which gives rise to a claim for damages. If there is any breach, it will give rise to a claim for damages, but not a right to reject the goods. There is no right to reject the goods here. Therefore, the contract cannot be treated as repudiated one. Hence, it can be understood that the stipulation which is collateral to the main purpose of the contract is called warranty, and the breach of warranty will give rise to claim for damages but not for rejection of the goods. So having learnt about warranties, Now let us see some essentials of a warranty. So like essentials of a condition, there are some essentials of a warranty also. There are three essentials of a warranty. Number one, it is collateral to the main purpose of the contract. So it is collateral to the main purpose of the contract, but not the essential to the main purpose of the contract. Condition was essential to the main purpose of the contract, but warranty is collateral. Warranty is collateral to the main purpose of the contract. And second one, the breach of warranty causes damage to the aggrieved party and it does not defeat the main purpose of the contract. Here, the main purpose of the contract is not defeated. The main purpose of the contract is served. The only thing that is missing here, or the only thing that is not followed here, is the warranty, which was a collateral one to the main purpose of the contract. And what aggrieved party can do here, he cannot reject the goods, but he can only claim the damages for breach of warranty, but cannot treat the contract as repudiated one. In case of conditions, the contract can be treated as a repudiated contract, but in case of warranty, the contract cannot be treated as a repudiated contract. Therefore, warranty is totally different from conditions. So the breach of conditions entitles the injured party to repudiate the contract, to refuse the goods, and if he has already paid for them, he can recover the price. He can recover the price from the seller. But the remedy in case of breach of warranty is the recovery of damages only, but not the price. He cannot get back the price, but he can claim only for damages. And it does not give rise to give a right to reject the goods and treat the contract as repudiated. Thus, a condition is more important or vital than a warranty. Whether a stipulation in a contract is a condition or warranty depends on the case and the formation of the contract, how the terms of the contract are written. No special words are required to create a warranty or condition, but a stipulation may be a condition, though called a warranty in the contract. It may happen, it depends upon the parties who are making the contract. For example, if a person called Mr. A purchases a bike from Mr. B and B tells that the bike can go at a speed of 150 kilometers per hour. Subsequently, on riding, it is observed that the bike is going only up to 100 kilometers per hour but not 150. This is breach of representation by the seller and amounts to breach of contract. Here, what can be noted is the seller has explained about the performance of the bike, which may go up to 150 kilometers, but was not demanded by the purchaser. The purchaser did not put a request that he needs a bike which can run or which can pick a speed of 150 kilometers. So in this case, this can be treated as a warranty but not a condition. Then in this case, the terms that have been mentioned between A and B become a basis to say whether it is a condition or a warranty. So now move on and see the differences between conditions and warranties. When we talk about differences between a condition and warranty, we should take some basis points on which there can be some distinction between a condition and warranty. So here we can see the distinction between a condition and warranty on three grounds. Number one, the importance of condition and warranty in a contract, the consequences of breach, and option of treatment. So, importance in the contract, when we talk about condition, is a stipulation which is essential to the main purpose of contract. So, without condition, there shall be no contract. If condition is mentioned, then there shall be a condition which is to the essential to the main purpose of the contract. Whereas warranty is a stipulation which is collateral but not essential. So these two words we have to remember. A condition is essential, but a warranty is collateral. So warranty is a stipulation which is collateral to the main purpose of the contract. So which is collateral to the main purpose of the contract is called warranty. So we can imagine a contract without warranty, but we cannot imagine a contract without condition. Therefore, condition is more important than warranty in a contract. Now let us see the second distinction, that is consequences of breach. The breach of condition gives a right to the aggrieved party to repudiate the contract and claim damages. To repudiate the contract and claim damages thereon. Whereas breach of warranty gives a right to the aggrieved party to claim damages only, but he cannot repudiate the contract. That is, in case of breach of a condition, the contract can be cancelled. But in case of breach of a warranty, the contract cannot be cancelled, but he can claim for damages that he has faced because of the breach of warranty. Therefore, here in case of breach also, condition is more important than warranty. Therefore, in case of a consequence of breach, the condition gives a right to repudiate the contract. Then a third point of distinction that we can make is option of treatment. In case of condition, a breach of condition can be treated as a breach of warranty as an option on the part of one party, that is aggrieved party. Whereas in breach of warranty there is no such option available. That is, breach of warranty can never be treated as breach of condition. Hence, the stress is more upon condition rather than warranty. We talk about condition, we talk about warranty, but in case of option of treatment, condition is treated as more than option. And sometimes condition is treated as warranty. What are those situations in which a condition can be treated as warranty? Section 13 of Indian Contract of Sale of Goods Act deals with cases in which a condition may be waived. Those conditions are: number one, voluntary waiver by buyer. Voluntary waiver by buyer, and when he waives, then he can treat the condition as warranty. And second one, treating the condition as warranty. So the buyer may elect to treat the breach of a condition as breach of warranty. Sometimes it is option. Then acceptance of goods by buyer. When buyer himself accepts the goods, then he can treat the conditions as warranties. So these are the points of difference between the conditions and warranties. Now let us move on and see express conditions and warranties. So there are some conditions which are express conditions also. and there are some warranties which are express warranties. In a contract of sale, there is an option to record the conditions and warranties either in express form or implied form. When the conditions and warranties which are agreed upon by the parties in express words, either spoken or written, are called as express conditions and warranties. So these are conditions and warranties which are recorded or which are agreed between the parties either in the form of oral words or in the form of written on paper. Then in such a case, these conditions and warranties are called express conditions and warranties. On the other hand, there may be some conditions and warranties which are implied also. Which are implied also. When the conditions and warranties are applicable in a contract of sale by operation of law, in some cases it may happen. By operation of law, the conditions and warranties are applicable. Then they are said to be implied conditions and warranties. Implied conditions and warranties which are applied or which are enforced by operation of law. And these are the conditions and warranties which do not form a part of contract of sale. These are conditions and warranties which do not form a part of contract of sale at the time of contract between the parties, but they are automatically deemed to be in existence by operation of law. By operation of law, it is automatically deemed that they are existing due to the operation of law. There is one famous case here that happened between Ward and Hobbes. That is, there was a sale of certain animals with all faults in a market, and the animals which were sold were suffering from typhoid fever and infected the other animals belonging to the buyer and caused him a heavy loss. As he suffered a heavy loss with the animals that he has purchased latest, this person moved to the court of law, and it was held that as it was expressly agreed that the seller was giving no warranty, the buyer was left without any remedy. So there was no warranty condition between the buyer and seller, therefore there was no remedy available to the buyer. This happened between Ward versus Hobbes. Now let us see some implied conditions and warranties. The implied conditions laid down under the Act are, there are 6 types of implied conditions that they are laid down by the Act. Number 1, condition as to title. Second one, sale by description. Third one, sale by sample as well by description. Then fourth one, condition as to quality or fitness. And fifth one, condition as to merchantability. Then sixth one, sale by sample. So all these are implied conditions to a contract of sale. Let us see one by one. Number 1, we have condition as to title. This is an implied condition on the part of the seller that in case of a sale, he has a right to sell the goods, and that in the case of an agreement to sell, he will have right to sell the goods at the time when the property is to pass. This is called condition as to title. On the other hand, or on the other extreme, where the seller has no right to sell the goods, the buyer has to return them to the owner, that is the original owner. But the buyer can recover the price from the seller because the consideration has paid. Sometimes it may happen that a person may not have a right to sell the goods. Sometimes it may happen when he is not the owner of the goods sold and he has sold the goods in a fraudulent manner or by deceiving the buyer. And sometimes he may be the owner, yet due to certain reasons he may not have a right to sell. Though being owner of the goods, he is not in a position to sell the goods because of some reason. There is one famous case in this point that happened between Roland versus Duval in the year 1923. In this case, a person bought a car from another person, and after using it, that is, after using the car for some time, he was compelled to return the car to the true owner, the third person, who is not the party to the contract. And it appeared that the person who has sold the car to other person had obtained the car by theft. It was a stolen car. Now it is clear the person who has sold the car is not the actual owner of the car. And it was held that the person who has sold the car has broken the condition as to title, because he sold something for which he was not the owner. Therefore, the court held that the buyer was entitled to recover the purchase money from the seller and the car was returned to the original owner. So in this case, this is the condition as to title, which is dealt by section 14. Then one more condition could be sale by description, where the goods are sold to a buyer by giving proper description. There is an implied condition that goods shall correspond with that description. So if a person selling apples say that apples are good and apples are ready to eat, when the buyer goes home and sees the apples, the description should be true and that should not be different from the explanation or description that is given by the seller. This rule is based on the maxim that if you contract to sell peas, you cannot oblige a party to take beans. So if you say you are selling peanuts or peas, you can sell only peas but not any some other item. If the description of the articles tendered is different in any respect, it is not the article bargained for and the other party is not bound to take it. And a contract for the sale of one thing cannot be performed by the supply of another. If one person says that he will sell a textile of white color, then he has to give a textile of white color only, but not a blue or black color. The buyer can refuse that by putting the implied condition of description. And the word description is very big and it has not been defined in the Act. But it usually means a particular class, kind, variety of goods, and it also includes any statement which is essential and which can be easily identified with the goods, as to the place of origin, as to the quality, as to the fitness, as to the source of manufacture, etc. For example, If a person asks for a textile manufactured in Surat from Gujarat, by describing the textile as manufactured in Surat, Gujarat, the seller cannot give a textile manufactured in Maharashtra, Mumbai, because it is different. What has been promised is totally different from what is being given here. Therefore, the expression uh, sale by description includes many situations. Many situations. Sometimes the buyer may buy the goods which he has not seen, but he relies only on description. In such a case, after taking the delivery of the goods, if he finds that the goods are totally different from what has been described, then he can reject the goods. And sometimes packing of goods also forms a part of description. As discussed, the packing shall also be a part of description. And sometimes when the buyer has seen the goods, it may be a sale by description if he relies not on what he has seen but what was stated to him. Physically, he may not inspect the goods, but he may rely on the statements given by the seller and he can buy the goods straight away. Then, in such a case, also it is a sale by description. Then, in some cases, it may happen that the implied condition is sale by sample as well by description. By mentioning the description of the product and by demonstrating a sample or by showing a sample, a seller may sell certain goods and the bulk goods supplied to the buyer shall correspond with the sample which has been shown to him. If the goods do not also correspond with the description, then it is a problem. In other words, there is an implied condition that goods shall correspond both with the sample as well as description. So the description shall be fulfilled and the sample shall also be fulfilled. And sometimes there is an implied condition as to condition of quality or fitness. Some contracts are made according to the quality or fitness of the goods. There is a particular product which is famous according to its quality or fitness. If the buyer demands that particular product only, the quality or fitness of the product shall correspond with the original. In this condition, we have one famous case that happened in the year 1936 between Grant versus Australian Knitting Mills Limited. In this case, what happened is a person who was a doctor purchased from a retailer two woolen garments. Two woolen garments manufactured, and next day he started wearing the woolen garments. And after wearing the woolen garments, the purchaser who is a doctor, became ill. And later on, it was detected that the cause for his illness was a chemical irritant which the manufacturer has not removed due to his negligence. And in the process of manufacture, the chemical was left like that only, and it was there on the woolen garment which was wore by the doctor, that is a purchaser. And the matter was taken up to the court, and the person pleaded that the main reason for his illness was the garment that he has purchased from the manufacturer, that is a knitting mill, and it was held by the court that the implied condition of fitness for the buyer's purpose was broken and he can claim for damages. Therefore, the seller is always bound to follow the implied conditions, even knowingly or unknowingly. The purpose for which the goods have been purchased shall be ascertained from the facts and conduct of the parties. Therefore, the implied condition as to quality or fitness shall also be followed. Then there is one more condition as condition to merchantability. So there is always an implied condition in a contract of sale that the goods purchased should be of merchantable quality and should satisfy some norms, like goods should have been brought by description and from a seller who deals in the goods on that description. The term merchantable has not been defined in the act, but the term marketable must be understood in the form of the quality and the quantity which is reasonably accepted as a complete promise. For example, some of goods which are not merchantable are a color TV which gives only black and white vision or which gives black and white picture. This means when we purchase a color TV, it should give color picture only. When it is giving black and white picture, then the merchantability is not available or is not present. Or a refrigerator which does not make ice. We purchase refrigerator for the purpose of making ice, but when a refrigerator does not prepare ice, then there is no merchantability. Or a watch which does not keep time. A watch which does not keep time properly is also not merchantable. Or, on the other hand, a pen which does not write. So, in all these cases, the merchantable quality is not present. Therefore, the implied condition is lost. And one more condition here is sale by sample. So the implied condition is sale by sample. In a contract of sale by sample, there is a term in the contract, either expressed or implied, that the bulk of the goods are in correspondence or equality of the sample, or shall be equal to the sample which has been shown. And this is an implied condition in which the sale by showing a sample shall have certain conditions or certain features, that the bulk shall correspond with the sample in quality. What has been shown in the quality, it shall correspond, and the bulk shall also possess the same quality. And the buyer shall have reasonable opportunity of comparing the bulk with the sample. So the reason shall be provided with an opportunity to compare the product given, that is a bulk lot given or delivered, with the sample that has been shown, and it should be given a reasonable time for refusal also when the sample does not correspond with the bulk, and that the goods shall be free from all types of defects that make the goods as unmerchantable, which would not be apparent on a reasonable examination of the sample. So on a total basis, what we can understand here is the delivery of the bulk goods can be taken by comparing the sample which was given to the buyer when it was shown. So this was about implied conditions, and there are some implied warranties also. There are some implied warranties of quiet possession and freedom of encumbrances and warranty annexed by usage of trade. After that, we will talk about the doctrine of caveat emptor. So the doctrine of caveat emptor says that a buyer must buy goods only after satisfying himself of the quality or fitness of the goods. So the rule of caveat emptor is laid down in section 16 and says that let the buyer beware. The buyer shall satisfy himself before buying the goods as to the quality or fitness of the goods, and later on he cannot go back. And if he makes a bad choice, sometimes it may happen, he cannot blame the seller and claim the damage. Therefore, the caveat emptor says let the buyer beware. But there are certain exceptions to this. Those exceptions are where the buyer relies on the skill and judgment of the seller. Where the buyer relies on the skill and judgment of the seller, he can simply buy the goods by believing the skill and judgment of the seller. Then it will become an exception. Then mercantile quality of goods. The mercantile quality of goods shall also be according to the norms, without which the buyer is not satisfied. Then sometimes it may happen there is a fraud. In case of fraud also, the caveat emptor theory is not applicable. So all these things are exceptions to caveat emptor, but caveat emptor rule says let the buyer beware before making a decision. Thank you.